Print everything? Sure. This is my own MC story. I still laugh when I think about it. In the early 2000s I worked as a Unix administrator at a small company that sold flowers. Back then we had multiple roles including security, database, mail, and network administration. One of my roles was to create the IDs for new salespeople across the world. It wasn't a huge amount of turnover, but each Valentine's Day and Mother's Day there would be a huge uptick as temporary staff got added. We'd add about 1,000 temporary sales and inventory workers leading up to these days. To create the IDs I generated a report and ran a script. However, I had to get approval from a manager before I could actually create the IDs. Each new user had a bunch of data including name, extension, etc. The process was to print out the user packet and send it to the manager for approval. With 1 or 2 people it's no big deal to print it out. With 1,000 users, I figured I'd just send a spreadsheet with a column to approve or not. I wrote the report that generated the CSV and it was a lot easier for me to use than printed pages. I sent the spreadsheet to the manager. He never replied. I followed up with a call and resent the email. He said he'd get to it. A week later it hasn't been approved and another 100 users are pending. I remind him that I need his sign off. He still doesn't get back to me. Finally, I get hauled up to some senior manager to get scolded. I explain that I need the approvals and that I'm waiting. The approving manager is pissed off when he hears. He screams to his boss that I didn't follow procedure and print out the forms. The forms have to be filed, apparently. You know where this is heading. By the time I finished printing, we'd gone through 5 reams of paper and dozens of folders, staples, and other supplies. All of this so the approver can check off the approval and sign his name. On top of that, I then had to process each individually. It took 2 days for something that normally took 2 minutes. I get the need for paperwork and bureaucracy. If someone gets added without approval that's a bad thing, as they have access to all customer data. But the policy changed immediately after this to allow an email and a single printout of all names as the required paper trail.
Now to the comments. It has taken almost 25 years in IT roles to finally understand what my dad means when he says, "Do you want to be right or do you want to be happy?" They're not looking for people who can drag them kicking and screaming into the next digital revolution. They're looking for people who can be trusted to follow process, and until that process is found to be broken, it'll stay the way it is.
On the other side of that, I tell my employees I don't get paid to be right. I get paid to be successful. If we, are doing something wrong or there's a better way, I want to hear about it so I can be more successful.
Sometimes you have to do exactly what they ask for them to realize it's a bad idea.
True, but even then, sometimes they are too dense to realize.
Haha, dealt with something like that. I used to work IT for an insurance company and the accountants would print a monthly report that would easily kill a box of paper, 10 reams. Bear in mind this was just one report. They had others that would use a decent amount, 1 ream or so. They would also sometimes mess up on the print and because of the antiquated accounting software they would have to, yes you guessed it, reprint the entire report. They were shocked when we showed them how to print to PDF and store their reports on a file server, cut the print time by over half and saved tons in paper. If someone wanted a copy, just copy it to a flash drive. I still remember the storeroom with printed reports in old paper boxes. So many boxes.
My current company is finally moving into the digital age, almost. We're legally required to keep records for 50 years plus. We still do paper records at the coal face. Next to my office is the paper graveyard. A very large room filled to shoulder height with archive boxes. Can't stack higher because it's like an episode of Hoarders. These are the records since 2000, the older ones are kept off-site.
We still do paper records at the coalface. Coalface.is, that an autocorrect thing? Fun case from 20 years ago. There was to be a finance audit on our site, and we got request from the finance people about printing the documents that the auditors would need to check because they need it on paper to check it. I cannot remember the number of pages, but I remember that we estimated it to be approximate 1 pallet full of paper, a serious number of boxes. Anybody, possibly with the exception of the finance people at the time, understood that printing a pallet full of paper for an audit, to be thrown out after the audit, did not make sense in any way, but they need it on paper. We had to tell them that we did not have printing capacity, so if they needed it, they would have to get some external printing company to do it. Apparently somebody understood the lunacy, as we never saw the pile of paper, and we even did not notice a peak in actual printing. We need it on paper. No, you don't. Would be better to have it printed, about 30 pounds of paper and 3 feet tall, then drop it dead center of his desk before he arrived in the AM.
I can see me doing this.
Paperless society? Less paper to store forever, WTF. Not here.
And this, my friends, is how Dunder Mifflin stays in business.
Did you deliver them all at once, or did you drop them off as they printed, hoping it was a stat that was 5 reams of paper and dozens of folders high? Also, do you need similar paperwork for terminating the temporary/seasonal help? The trick is to show them that they can type approved once and drag it down, thus appealing to everyone's lazier side. And I know lazy, I have a stamp with one of my staff's name on it because I have to fill out a form for them 4 days a week. Manglement actually learned something. Color me surprised. Was a request ever denied? The approving manager is pissed off when he hears. He screams to his boss that I didn't follow procedure and print out the forms. Yeah, if it wasn't obvious that he was just saving his donkey. First of all, if OP didn't follow the procedure, why'd he reply that he'd get to it? Nice on the MC though, it sure leaves a paper trail. A small company that hires around 1,000 seasonal employees. I would hate to see what you consider to be a large company, LOL.
Florists are weird. One of those businesses that make most of their profit in a day or two every year.
Stupid laws requiring record storage for 7+ years. Did you use an inkjet printer? Would cost a fortune, LOL. Good story, but I seem to have missed seeing the MC.
The MC is printing and delivering hundreds of individual approvals at the manager's insistence, using a crap ton of paper and supplies, and probably taking up a fair bit of space at the manager's desk. The manager could have chosen to check off the one digital spreadsheet with all the information for the hundreds of approvals included, but instead of thinking about what he was asking, he chose the much more wasteful path.
Using a crap ton of paper and supplies, and probably taking up a fair bit of space at the manager's desk. And time. A lot more than it should have taken them. You are not from Germany, are you? Because that's normal over here. Loads of paperwork and fax machines are still used as well.
OP replied. Nein, aber ich kann Deutsch sprechen.
I followed up with a call and resent the email. Turns out the manager resented it more than you resent it. Hell, the paper method increases the likelihood of unapproved. No one is reading 5 reams of paper. Create a single extra form, fill in the unapproved, and you'd definitely end up with a signed off one. At least the spreadsheet could be verified quick, assuming a database existed to compare names to or something. Where was the malicious compliance?
He printed the absurd number of forms,
which management wanted all along, and appeared to be perfectly happy with.